Hello folks. I originally intended this to be a review of the Leupold Yosemite 8x30 binoculars, and it still is, but I'm going to be comparing them extensively to several other pairs of binoculars, so it'll end up being a bit of a review of all of them. I've had these Leupolds for years, and when I got them they were far better than the old binoculars I had at the time. Not too surprising, as these Leupolds were around $100, and the others were probably 30 to 40-ish. In general, with optics, you get what you pay for. Exotic glass types, more precise lens shaping, finer lens polishing and alignment, and high-quality lens coatings all add cost to optics. So at the low cost end, a small increase in price can make a big difference in performance. Once you get beyond a certain level, the law of diminishing returns starts to hit hard, and smaller improvements add higher and higher costs. But that doesn't mean there aren't performance differences at a given price category, and I think the Yosemite punch above their cost in terms of optics. I can only base this on my experience, so let's get into what that experience has been. As I said, I've had these Leupolds for years, but I recently decided to get a pair of 10x42 binoculars because I wanted something with a little bit more magnification, but with larger objectives, so I wouldn't give up light gathering. I wanted something good, and after some research, I found a great deal on these Pentax Z Series 10x43 ED binoculars. After comparing the Pentax to my humble little Leupold Yosemites, I was surprised at how well they held up in comparison to the far more expensive Pentax binoculars. Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to see how other binoculars would compare to the Yosemites. I wanted to see if they were just that good for the price, or if a larger sample size would change my opinion. I also wanted to make sure that the Yosemites hadn't changed over the years, and I wanted to make sure mine weren't like a golden sample or something, so I did go and compare them to a brand new pair, and I couldn't distinguish them from my older pair optically or in terms of build quality. In the end, I compared the 8x42 Vortex Crossfire, which were on sale and priced similar to the Yosemites. These are the original Crossfires. After I spent days of comparing these binoculars, I found out that Vortex has actually just released the new HD Crossfires. I may eventually check out and compare the HD version, but for this comparison, I used the standard Vortex Crossfires. I also compared the 10x43 Pentax ZD ED and the 10x42 Vortex Viper HD, both of which fall into a much higher price category. This is the 2018 version of the Viper HD, which is made in China. And for anyone wondering, the Pentax are made in Japan, and the others are all made in China. Optical quality aside, the Yosemite definitely wears its cost-saving measures on its sleeves, so to speak. The build quality isn't too bad, but it is the worst of the four, causing a couple minor annoyances. It has twist-up eye cups with click-stop positions, but they're a bit loose, and I often found that when I remove the ocular cover, one or both of the eye cups will pull up slightly, and I have to twist them back down to have the full view since I wear eyeglasses. None of the others moved when I didn't want them to. The Crossfires have tighter, smoother twist-up eye cups. They don't have click-stop positions, but they work very well. Unsurprisingly, the two more expensive models have better eye cups. Both have multiple click-stop positions, and both are smooth. The other build quality area where the Yosemites fall a bit behind is the focus knob. It's a bit stiff, but the main issue is the fact that the rotating resistance is lower for a fraction of a turn when reversing focusing direction. This inconsistent feel can be a bit annoying, though it did become less bothersome as I got used to it. I've had mine for years, and I hardly notice it until I start comparing it to other binoculars. The depth of field is larger than the others, so achieving good focus isn't too difficult, but the focusing knob does feel a bit janky. The knob on the Crossfire is smooth and turns very easy, easier than any of the others. It has a tiny bit of play, but the focus knob is overall much more consistent and feels nicer to use than the one on the Yosemites. The focus knobs on the Viper HD and the Pentax Z Series are both smooth, they have consistent amount of resistance and no play. Both are excellent. All of these have rubber-coated bodies and feel rugged. With the smallest objectives, it's no surprise that the Yosemite is the lightest in this particular group. Weight might not make a big difference to you, but depending on your use, and if you're carrying it for a long time or holding them up for a long time, it could be a consideration. All of them come with a single-piece rain guard or ocular cover, depending on what you want to call it. All the covers are essentially the same except the one on the Pentax. It's okay, but I prefer the others as they're a bit more secure. They all come with objective covers that remain tethered when removed. The two cheaper pairs come with outside the barrel objective covers. They work fine, and they're very easy to slip on and off, but they're also a little bit easier to knock off accidentally. The two more expensive models have inside fitting objective covers, very secure, and they don't get easily knocked off, but they do require a tiny bit more effort to secure back in place. All these binoculars come with cases. I don't know where the case is for my Yosemites at the moment, but it's basically just a neoprene pouch with a Velcro flap. I don't know if some versions still come with that, but the new Yosemites that I checked out were gray, and they came with a really nice case and strap. Honestly, the case and strap that come with the new Yosemites is probably a tie with the Viper HD. The case for the Viper HD is good quality, it's well padded, and it's the largest case. The large size makes it easy to get the binoculars in and out, but it's obviously bulkier. The strap with the Viper HD is well padded and very wide, very nice strap. The strap that came with the rest of them is functional but simple and basic. The Viper HD also comes with a full harness that works with the included case. The case with the Crossfire is simpler, but it works fine, and I like the snap buckle. The Pentax case is the most compact by far. It's nice enough, but it's pretty basic. Despite the Yosemite's close focus spec of nearly 10 feet, I found their close focus to actually be similar to the Crossfires at around 7 feet or so. Not bad at all. The Pentax can focus super close, around 4 feet. The Viper HD also do very well, focusing in at about 5 feet. Brightness actually seemed pretty similar in all four. In my use, whether I was trying to pick out specific details in my backyard by moonlight, or just looking into the shadows of the woods during the day, the larger exit pupils of the Crossfires didn't seem to offer as much of an advantage over the others as I expected. They seemed a bit brighter than the Yosemites, but I never felt like I was able to see any extra detail because of the brightness. In most situations, the Yosemites seemed just as bright in terms of the details I could pick out in low light. None of the four really stood out to me as having a significant advantage in the ability to see detail in low light. Keep in mind, I don't use them all that much in low light, so there could be more differences that I didn't notice in my use. But definitely none stood out as far and away above the others. As for chromatic aberration, which is typically purple or green color fringes around bright or high contrast objects, the Yosemites are pretty good. There's very little in the center, with a bit more showing up towards the edge. Not perfect, but pretty good, and there was never enough that it was distracting. The Crossfires were sensitive to eye position. If I didn't have my eyes positioned just right, color fringes would be pretty noticeable. If I repositioned a bit to ensure I was looking perfectly straight down the center, the color fringing would drop significantly. But with how sensitive they were to eye position, color fringing stood out to me more than it did in the Yosemites. The Viper HD occasionally had bright fringing around objects if the focus wasn't perfect. It's not uncommon for color fringing to be worse in out-of-focus areas, but with the Vipers, even if the subject was within the focal depth of field well enough to appear sharp, bright color fringing would sometimes be visible if the subject wasn't in the middle of the depth of field. If I carefully tweaked the focus, I could get the fringing to go away, giving me a view with less fringing than the Yosemite or the Crossfire. But with how sensitive it was to focus, the fringing did stand out to me occasionally. The Pentax Z series have the least chromatic aberration. In normal use, I never noticed any. If I really looked for it in worst-case scenarios, I could see a very small amount, but only if I looked towards the edges of the field of view. I never noticed it when I wasn't looking for it. Keep in mind, color fringing typically only becomes visible on really bright edges or along very high contrast lines, but when it's there, it tends to stand out to me more in casual viewing than some other problems do. As for sharpness drop towards the edge, none are perfect, but none were bad enough to bother me in normal viewing either. If I had to give the edge to one, it would be the Viper HD. It seemed to remain sharper further towards the edge. The Yosemites were the worst, but only by a slight amount. The Crossfires have more distortion than the others. It's not too bad, but it was the only one where I actually noticed it before I was specifically looking for it. When I did look for it, I could see only a small amount in the Yosemite and the Viper HD, and the Pentax had essentially none that I could see. Color tone is very good on all of them. The two Vortex pairs looked a little warmer in tone than the others, but it was a small difference, and I only noticed it in comparison. When comparing, I would say the Pentax appeared the most accurate in color tone, but all were very good and provided very accurate, pleasing color. Resolution and contrast is where the Yosemites really impress. This little Leupold nearly matched the Viper HD and the Pentax Z series. Ignoring the difference in magnification, virtually any fine detail I could see with the two high-priced binoculars, I could see in the Yosemites. All three have fantastic resolution and contrast, giving views that just pop with color and detail. Particularly in the center, the Yosemites just blow me away with how close they are in overall clarity to the two which cost so much more. They aren't as good, but they're surprisingly close. The Crossfires don't quite match the others, particularly with contrast. When switching to any of the other three from the Crossfires, the view just had that little bit of extra clarity that made details pop. That's not to say the Crossfires are bad, far from it actually. They're very sharp and detailed, and the difference in clarity between them isn't huge. Overall, I think the Crossfires perform very well, particularly for the cost. And finally, we have just the ease of looking through them. Eye relief plays a part in this, and I think all of them have sufficient eye relief. I wear glasses, and with the eye cups all the way down, I can see the full field of view in any of them. Although just barely in the Yosemite, which is why it's annoying for me when the eye cups, pull up slightly when I take the ocular guard off. But how sensitive these four are about actual eye placement varies. The Viper HD are the best. Put them up to your eyes and look through them. Simple as that. No fidgeting to get the position just right. They're not picky about eye placement, and I found them the least fussy to look through. The Yosemite and the Pentax, I would say, were tied for second. Both are good and didn't give me any trouble, but they aren't quite as forgiving as the Viper HDs. The Crossfires have a smaller sweet spot for eye placement than the others. I sometimes found myself fidgeting with the placement of my eyes to get them positioned just right. As a glasses wearer, I no doubt have more of an issue with this than someone who could just twist the eye cups up and rest their eyes against them, but it's still a consideration. The Crossfires aren't too bad, but they are less forgiving than the others. In the end, all four of these are great binoculars. Your money isn't going to waste on the Viper HD and the Pentax Z series because they do have superior build quality and optics. Both are fantastic. I'd say that the optics are slightly better on the Pentax overall, and they focus super close if you're trying to look at, close-up insects or something like that. The Viper HD are very forgiving about eye placement. They have a bit larger field of view, and they're pleasantly sharp all the way to the edge. And they come with some nice accessories. But don't feel too bad if you can't afford or just simply don't want to spend that much for binoculars. The Crossfires have Vortex's lifetime warranty. The build quality is a step above the Yosemites. And while they don't quite match the optical clarity of the Yosemites, their optics are still very good, and they certainly don't disappoint for the price. The Leupold Yosemite binoculars don't match the Crossfires in build quality, and the case that came with mine is the least impressive of the four, though the new Yosemites come with an excellent case. And they are terrific value when it comes to optical quality. They're a bit more forgiving of eye placement than the Crossfires, and the general clarity is excellent, surprisingly close to the Pentax ZD and the Viper HD. They're bright, they have excellent color accuracy, and they have a wide depth of field. The law of diminishing returns with optical quality is hard to argue with here. If you're okay with the small build quality issues, it's difficult to imagine much better optical quality for the price. Keep in mind, I only have experience with the 8x30 Yosemite. I don't have any reason to believe the 6 or 10 power are different, but I can't say for sure since I don't have experience with them. Same with the rest of these. It is possible that these same models in a different power could have slight optical differences beyond just magnification due to differences in internal optical design. After all this, I actually plan to review the Vortex Raptor 8.5 by 32 binoculars. They're a Poro Prism design just like the Yosemites, and it'll be interesting to see how another $100 Poro Prism model compares to these. I'd also be interested to see how the new Crossfire HD stack up. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, let me know. As always, thank you for watching. Take care.